Welcome to High Heels and Hay Bales, where polished meets practical, legal meets lifestyle, and debt meets dirt.
I am Kristen, your resident farm mama, keeping it real about motherhood, homesteading, and laughing our way through the chaos.
And I'm Adrienne, aka the Ladylike Lawyer. I'm here to help you make sense of money, debt, legal life, without the boring fine print.
So kick off your shoes or boots or heels and let's get into it.
Well, hello and welcome back to High Heels and Hay Bales. How you doing, Kristen?
I'm here. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I know we're coming here today to talk about something that pisses us both off.
Yes.
It's called
Very much.
the payday lending industry. We're gonna unfurl it. We're gonna peel back the oniony layers, and I've learned a lot by getting ready for this episode.
Yeah, and as a person who used to use payday loans, I will say up front, if you use them, you're not a terrible person. It's just a terrible system. Like, so many people use them to just get by, and it's okay. It's when you get trapped in the cycle and realize how awful they are, that is when you get really pissed off.
Indeed. We're going to talk about it, and stay tuned, because at the end of this episode we are going to get an update from Kristen. We're going to need a Kristen life update as she's navigating the potential end of her marriage. So I just want to say we did a podcast episode about that last week, and go back and listen to that. You're going to be following along so we can see how this is going to end for Kristen. But first, Kristen, did you know if you borrow $500 from a payday lender, how much do you think you would owe in just 1 month? If you borrow $500 today, 30 days later, how much do you think you would owe?
In a month? Because by a week, I know it's at least another $50 to $100. But I would assume it would be closer to $700-800.
You're right. It's almost $700. And I think that maybe you're more familiar with that because you've done it before, right? But when you realize that borrowing $500 today is going to cost you $695 30 days from today, you don't really completely understand what that actually represents, what that interest represents, right? Simple interest, if I borrowed $500, simple interest is yearly. So if I borrowed $500 and paid it back to you a year later, if I had 20% interest, right, I'd have to pay you $600, because that's flat straight interest. But compounding interest is just something that a lot of people don't understand. And I'm telling you, these lenders have learned how to trick us really, really good.
They absolutely have. And that's another thing, like you said that about the compounding interest. Even with car loans, I didn't understand how the interest works.
Right.
And people say, pay your car payment bi-weekly, so you cut out some of the interest. And I didn't understand that for the longest time until I filed bankruptcy. And it's the same thought process. You get more
value
if you pay it sooner, or more times a month. It's wild how these lenders work.
It is. Well, just to bring this all full circle, borrowing $500 and owing $695 30 days later, that is a compounding interest rate of 391%. And today, right now in America, payday lenders around the United States, the average lending percentage is 391% APR. That's why I use that example. Can you even believe that? That's 391%. By contrast, most of our credit cards are, 26, 28, 32, up to about 36, 38. We don't really see the credit cards go much over 36 or 38 in traditional ones. However, they can shoot up pretty darn high. But 391%, it really starts to put it in perspective.
That's wild. And one thing I think some folks have to understand is payday loans not necessarily always are paid back by the month. So when we did it, it goes by your pay week or
Yeah.
pay cycle. So my soon to be ex-husband, I guess, he was paid weekly. So we would go on payday, take out a payday loan for $250, and a week later on payday, go back and pay $350, and did that every week, and then got into a cycle where that wasn't enough. So we had to go to a second and do the same thing. And it was literally bouncing. Like, we would spend all day Thursday morning taking care of this just so we had his paycheck amount or a little less for the week.
Right.
Like,
well, statistically speaking, Kristen, you and Jeremy were not unusual when you were doing this. Did you know that an estimated 12 million people use payday loans? I mean, that's more payday. Let me stop and just say this. There are more payday lenders in America than there are Starbucks.
mm-hmm.
There are more payday lenders than there are McDonald's. And we're going to learn that there's 13 states that don't even allow payday lenders. So all of these are concentrated in states that allow them to really take advantage of consumers. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about today.
Well, we lived in a little town, like just little town, maybe 2,000 people lived there. In that town, there were 3 payday lenders, to give you a little bit more perspective.
So let's just talk about really what payday loans are, because honestly, I didn't understand that there were states that they didn't even really function or exist until I researched this. So it occurred to me that there actually might be a lot of people listening who don't actually know entirely what we're talking about.
Right.
So let's talk about payday loans. There's really 5 common traits, 5 things that really set them apart. The first thing is it is going to be usually a small loan. The most common loan, the loan limit is usually around $500. Not always, but that tends to be a loan limit for each individual loan. And they are, like you said, relatively short loan terms. And in fact, when I gave the month example, it's not super realistic because they are usually either week to week by your paycheck or bi-weekly or bi-monthly based on when you get paid. Repayment used to be, and it still is in some places, a post-dated check, right? And more likely now it's going to be an ACH transfer, right? One of those automatic transfers. They're unique because they usually do not require a credit check, right? That might surprise some people. There are lenders out there just lending money every day all over the place with no credit check. They're not checking people's credit. And for that reason, it becomes extremely, the people who don't have good credit are going there to get their credit.
That's exactly why people do that.
Yeah. And the 5th thing is that it is usually structured to be paid off in a lump sum, like you're supposed to pay the whole thing off. But most states permit this rollover or renewal of the loan, and that's what you were describing. And what you don't realize, what a lot of people don't realize, is that you're paying all the fees again, right? So you're paying all of the fees again, plus you're paying the interest that is now increasing on the original balance. And so these are very dangerous, quick loans that are marketed really as a lifeline to people, right? Quick money, no credit check, no questions asked. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, that's like answers to your prayers. And obviously, some of the answers we have in life tend to be the absolute worst choices we could ever have, right?
Right, exactly. And it's really like paying rent on the debt you have, because once you start, it's so hard to get out of that cycle. So hard, because again, most of the time it's somebody that does not have good credit, access to credit cards, access to regular loans, and they are not, they're banking on overtime at work to get extra money, to get a little bit ahead. It just frustrates me because I know how hard it is.
Well, you know how hard it is because you've been a victim of this predatory system. The average payday loan is actually around 375 to $375, and that average $375 dollar loan will balloon to about 520 in fees. And these are generally set up in communities and in areas where you have a high concentration of people that do not have a college degree, number one. They tend to be highly concentrated as renters, not homeowners. They are people who are generally earning less than about $40,000 a year. And obviously, they are much more common in urban areas where there are higher concentrations of, people who are struggling financially.
Absolutely.
So these are who the payday loan lenders are looking for, and it's really one of the things that brings so many people to my office as a bankruptcy lawyer, and I know that you've ridden this train painfully.
Yes. Yes. And the other thing that I will say, one of the things that kind of draws people into this, now this is back in the day before automatic payments were so much more viable, and online transfers, and I mean all the online stuff. Back in my day, those places were marketed as,
I'm so sorry, I banged my microphone.
I
Say
didn't
that
even hear
again.
it. I didn't even
Okay,
hear it.
I did.
These places were kind of marketed as check cashing places because there wasn't a lot of direct deposit. So people would take their check and pay like a $50 fee or $20, whatever percentage of their check, cash their check. And then those people were taught to upsell into these loans. Like, hey, do you need an extra $200 this week? That is how a lot of this back 15, 20 years ago really took off. So it's, when you're like right now, if I were to walk into one of these places to cash a check and say, oh, yeah, I do need an extra few $100s because my tractor broke, or I need extra feed or whatever, it would be very enticing to say, hey, a couple extra $100, I could take care of this next week.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that ball starts rolling. And I
Well,
forgot what I was going to say.
well, I actually addressed this in my book, Bankruptcy Magic, available on Amazon. But I actually wrote about this, and I discussed the fact that when people are living paycheck to paycheck, the rising interest rates and limited lending options are definitely going to force people into really difficult situations. And somebody with more financial resources, right, like me, um, we are going to simply cut back on luxuries. Right. I'm going to stop dining out as much. But the trade offs are much more difficult and dire when you have fewer and fewer resources. And so you have to start choosing between whether you're paying rent, or you're covering your credit card bills, and that's where these things start to jump in. And this is a really fragile financial state that pushes people into the arms of these predatory lenders. And these places are going to set up shop right where it's most convenient for them to take advantage of people. That's why in your small town of 2,000 people, you had three of them, and probably not a single Starbucks, I'm guessing.
Oh, no. There was like a
Right?
Burger King.
Right. You didn't even have a McDonald's. See, it's the statistics are, are bearing out to be true. So, it's also one of the issues here is there is a lack of accessible, truthful information, right? And that keeps them in this information loop that is not complete. They're not getting everything that they need to know in order to make better choices, right?
Right.
Uh,
And there's even, they aren't marketed necessarily as payday loans, but there are amount, there are loan places like payday loans that do offer things. And of course, some use, car titles. That's the new thing, is the car title loans. And so you can go in, but it's the same interest rate stuff. I can think of two off the top of my head. One that we used, thank God we paid it back, but the interest was ridiculous. A $5,000 loan was going to cost me $9,000.
right. Right.
So it's there is not enough information saying, hey, this is the other option, the safer option. But then when people get trapped in this awful, just predatory cycle, that's where bankruptcy comes into play to get people out of the cycle.
Did you know that when we're talking about the debt trap cycle, that the average payday borrower is going to roll their loan 8 times before they get out? So they're going to pay fees 8 times on the original amount that they borrowed. And they're going to roll it and roll it and roll it and roll it and roll it 8 times. And
That
that is,
actually, that feels like it's a low number to me. I know it's average, but it feels like low because, again, we were doing 2 and 3 a week, and some of them we had to roll, and it was over a year, at least over a year.
and that original $500 that you borrowed for an emergency, it's $1,000, it's $2,000, it's $4,000.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a client yesterday morning, and that client had $400 in a payday loan that they'd been rolling basically since April. And that person was making $50. I mean, the fees were $50 alone. So every other week he's paying $50. And all of the interest on this loan is ballooning, 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 ballooning. He lost his job. He thought he was going to have a job really quickly. He had a couple of these payday loans, and he is in such deep trouble at this point in time that bankruptcy is our only option right now.
Right.
Well, and it just, I mean, at least my client was able to find me and come to me, right? I think one of the biggest problems is that most people in these communities are just so wrapped up with these payday lenders that they're, like I said, there's an information vacuum, and they're not even really aware that they have options and rights and directions that they can go. I mean, I just want to remind you that we do have something called the Truth in Lending Act, the TILA. That's from 1968. And it requires a lot of disclosures and stuff. But these credit card companies and these lenders have gotten really fancy at the way that they market this. They're not telling you you have a 391% interest rate. They're telling you that it's like $20 fee on every $100. They're making it sound simple, like you can calculate it in your mind, and they're doing that very much on purpose, so
Very
that
much.
you trip over the numbers and you think you understand them when in fact you don't. That is by definition predatory.
And all of the details on these are in the fine print. And when you are in a hurry, you got things to do. You
Yeah.
don't read the fine print. And this is what I remembered now. When you do say, okay, I'm done, enough, whether you burn the company, the bank, whatever, I can explain how we did it. You can be sued. Obviously, it's a loan. It's a lending institution. They can come after you, sue you, garnish your wages, garnish your accounts, all that stuff. But what happens, and this has been something that has happened, there are scammers on top of this that will call you and say, you had a loan with this place, whether you did or not. And 15 years ago, how are you going to remember? And you owe us $550. This happened right before or right around the time we filed bankruptcy. And I called you like, oh my God, what is this? And we very quickly figured out it was a scam.
Right.
But
I forgot
that
about
also, that also gets people freaking out. And then they pay that money to these, like, it's so weird and so messy and so awful. And it's just a giant trap.
It's sleazy and it's disgusting, and I would love to walk our audience through how the hell we got here. Because
Yes.
if you think about it, I mean, think about it, Kristen. And if you were living in the 1920s in America, and somebody was trying to charge you 391% compounding daily interest on a $500 loan, it was literally called loan sharking. It was highly illegal. It was a pretty serious crime that was used really because the loan sharking industry was largely run by the mafia. we had organized crime. And so we had all these laws in place that prevented them. They were called usury laws, right? The Gambino family, Whitey Bulger, they were prosecuted and indicted on loan sharking. That's how we got them. And Gambino wanted 100% interest, from a Wall Street businessman, and he's going to jail for it when the payday lenders on the corner are getting 391. What
Right.
changed? What changed here?
They took away the usury laws
Yeah,
because
because corporations and lenders became the mafia, right? They
exactly.
started to get power, and they started
Mhm.
to take control.
And I didn't know this until I think I'd seen some of your TikToks about it. And I was like, holy crap, that makes total sense now. I'm a mob fanatic. I love everything mafia. Like I'm pretty sure I could be the head of a mafia
Love it.
family.
Yeah.
I used to speak with a New York accent after I binge watched Mafia Wives for like a month and a half straight.
None
Anyway,
of this surprises me. Not a single
right.
bit.
I'll have to tell you another story that I told at my brother's birthday party to my brothers, and they thought it was great. But anyway, I knew about loan sharking, but I didn't know that usury law, and that's where that came from. And I didn't understand it. But then putting two and two together, I was like, oh, no, this totally makes sense. Legal loan sharking. That's interesting.
Yeah, so let me just take you back a little bit because I got to give you a little bit more history here. Because this is your history lesson, everyone. Even before the United States was actually born, colonists who came over, they set a cap on interest. So way back in the days, right?
I didn't know
They
that.
set the cap at they set the interest cap at 8%. And then after the Revolutionary War, when all the states came together as a nation, they further reduced the cap on interest down to 6%. Like
Wow.
that was a hugely great start for consumers in America. And it looked like it was going to be like the dawn of a new era in that regard. But honestly, from like the moment we came together as a nation, there's just been this little small steady shift away from protecting people from high interest rates, especially after World War II. Those safeguards that we talked about that were called usury laws were what were used to bring down the mafia. But when, there were significant changes really that came about in the 70s in a Supreme Court case, of course. I'm a lawyer. I'm going to talk about the Supreme Court case called Marquette National Bank versus Omaha Service Corp. And that was a 1978 case. And it was a real key turning point because before this point in time, every state had a cap on interest. Okay. And it usually applied to businesses operating within the states. All right. So follow with me here. The court ruled that businesses could use the interest rate cap of the state where they were headquartered, regardless of where they were doing business. So one state, North Dakota, said we are doing away with interest rate caps. So a bunch of businesses quick hurried to North Dakota. It was a brilliant move on North Dakota's part. So
Great.
you could establish your business there, and North Dakota had zero, so you could start charging zero caps, so you could start charging more out of state, even though those states had limits, right? So banks were rushing to incorporate in North Dakota that would allow them to charge those higher rates in other states. And so by definition, all the other states basically had to get rid of or eliminate theirs, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not very many limitations. There's a few states that do still have some strict APR limitations. Arkansas, Maine, and Vermont are down in the 17 and 18%. But guess what, Kristen? There's a lot of
Not
states that have
Ohio.
no caps. Guess
Mm-hmm.
where we live? We live in a
Hello.
state with absolutely zero caps on interest. That's why we can be charged 391%.
Which
There's
makes
absolutely none. It's
Which makes sense
crazy.
why, yeah, it's ridiculous. And that makes sense why there are places that don't have these payday loans because they wouldn't survive. They wouldn't be able to thrive and grow their businesses. It makes sense. It's
Well, yeah,
shady
I mean,
AF.
think about it. Payday loans are legal or essentially banned in Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, District of Columbia, Georgia, because they capped theirs at 60%, and payday lenders were like, we can't do it at 60.
Right.
Massachusetts, Maryland, New Jersey, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Vermont.
West
So
Virginia?
anybody who lives in those states are unaware, I'm assuming, of payday lenders. Yeah, West Virginia. And then
That surprises me.
Maine, Montana, and New Hampshire have limits on interest, which generally means that these payday loan companies aren't profitable. They aren't in these states. They don't
Right.
go there. They can't set up business and make money. So, you know, it really comes down to what is our state doing to us, Kristen? Like, why is our state letting us get bent over and reamed like this?
Political contributions?
Is that a little too much?
No, because I was going to say we just don't get any Vaseline on this one.
Yeah.
But but like it's I think that's part of one of the bigger problems of our capitalistic society. I was actually having a conversation with Jeremy yesterday about how it's so expensive in the US. I know it's expensive other places, but there are places like my family's from Hungary, and we were talking about housing, and my cousin had posted a house that was comparable to mine, just not as much land, for like a third of what I paid for my house. And I'm like, how is this possible? How is this possible? But they have more restrictions. They have more things in place to protect their citizens from all of this outlandish interest rate. I mean, realistically, we as a country are getting bent over way too hard.
Well, remember when I mentioned the Truth in Lending Act of 1968? So, who is supposed to implement the Truth in Lending Act of 1968? I know the answer to that. The entire act was put into place, and it was the Consumer Federal Protection Bureau who is supposed to implement the Truth in Lending Act. But guess what?
That doesn't exist anymore, does it?
Well, it does. It does. But in February of 2025, President Trump did order that the CFPB be dismantled. There have been a lot of litigation, right? We're sitting about 6 months past that. And as we sit here today, they've won a few court decisions recently, which is nice, but they still have exceptionally limited function. They're not really here to help anymore.
Right.
And it's extremely disturbing.
Very, because there are no protections for anyone.
There are very few protections. In fact, you know, the way we got here, of course, is that donors from the broader financial service industry, you know, were donating to this administration. That's hedge fund operators, investment banks. They spent a lot of money getting this particular president elected, and they now have some of them have prominent positions in Trump's administration. I know Elon Musk is gone, but Elon Musk made it very clear during the campaign and while Trump was running that the CFPB was an impediment to his business interests. And a lot of people felt that way. And so because of that, we now have a Consumer Federal Protection Bureau who's not able to implement or enforce the Truth in Lending Act. That's just one small thing that they did, but it's an example of what they did. It means the print can be smaller, less clear, more vague, less communication, more trickery, more manipulation.
Right.
And, it's because we value corporations more than we value people. And that's the reality in America. And if you don't really understand that, then you're going to continue to go through this financial experience expecting things that are not going to happen, right? Expecting safety guardrails to be in place that are not there. And so I know that those are gone, and you now know those are gone. And I think that's what's just so frustrating for you and I.
Well, for sure. And, you know, it's become very, very clear over this last several years that corporations hold all the power. You know, I mean, it's become blatantly clear even to those people who never really paid attention to this. And we did talk about this before with the tariffs and things like that. We talked about how corporations became, they weren't the forefront of everybody. The government wasn't protecting them, and now they're running the government, and it's causing so many problems for everybody. I mean, honestly, that is not a corporation. I mean, realistically, it's affecting you, it's affecting me, it's affecting everybody.
That's true. These things do affect me, even though I'm in a different socioeconomic group than you. My money goes less places. I have less protections. I have less ability to feel safe and comfortable with the decisions I'm making. I have to trust, the lenders. I don't trust the lenders. I'm being forced to trust them, and I know not to. And I know that I don't have a government anymore that's making sure that they're following, very, very basic rules. I just don't trust that the government is making them follow these rules. And so
Right.
it is important that people recognize where they fit into this whole thing. And I think a lot of us think we have more power and strength against in order of fighting these than we do. We have very little power to fight against this.
Absolutely.
You got to change, you got to elect people who make this a priority, and this isn't the type of thing we're usually thinking about when we're going into the voting booth. We're not thinking down the trickle down to our level like this, and that I think is something that I hope we're going to be able to change soon.
I hope so, because unless you're a millionaire, you pretty much have no power. Yeah. Even with our votes and everything, it's such a mess. Such a mess.
Yeah. Well, I guess, what are the alternatives to payday lenders? We've got people who are using them. I think there's just absolutely no question. As a bankruptcy lawyer, I have to tell you to step outside of yourself for a moment and see the cycle that you're in. And it's not just, a $500 payday loan. That's the problem. It's usually the tip of the iceberg. It's usually the reddest flag we can see to suggest that there's a lot more problems there anyway. So if you're walking into a payday lender, it means your credit cards are maxed out, or your credit is so bad that you can't get credit cards. You are already in a pretty bad place. And as a bankruptcy lawyer, bankruptcy solves a lot of that. We clear all that stuff out. But the alternatives are, good old fashioned budgeting. You might be able to get into some payment plans, but most people who are walking into a payday lender, I honestly believe this, should literally be walking into a bankruptcy lawyer's office. And this wasn't a self-promotion. We aren't doing this for self-promotion. That's just a reality. It's just an indication that you have hit the wall and there's really nowhere else to go. I want to put a sandwich board on my husband and just have him walk in front of payday lenders all day long. Like, if you're walking in here, man, stop right now. Here's a QR code to the ladylikeLawyer.com. You need to be looking at something else. It's just it's clear, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I can explain how we got out of it. It wasn't safe, right? Whatever. I mean, we didn't have any other debt technically, so filing bankruptcy might not have worked for us. The way we did it, we didn't pay them back. What we did was we were still getting paper checks. We went to a new bank, opened an account before we knew this was going to happen, and we just let everything go. Let the bank, because we had overdraft protection, we let the bank just eat that up, and we just let it go. And we eventually slowly paid the bank back. That was the only way we could see to get out of it without filing bankruptcy. Because again, we didn't have anything outside of that where we would need it. We would have been in the right place to file bankruptcy. So that's not also a smart way to do things, because it opens you up to lawsuits from the bank, lawsuits from everybody, and then you're still going to have to walk into an attorney's office and say, hey, I did this, so let's fix it. But that was the only way we could see. And I know a lot of people do that and get into that position and still end up filing bankruptcy.
What's interesting, Kristen, is you're talking about doing this probably, obviously before COVID,
Oh, way before COVID.
probably about 10 to 15 years ago, because back then they would take a post-dated check. But the irony is that it's illegal. It's illegal in Ohio to write a
Mm-hmm.
post-dated check, but
Mm-hmm.
they would have you do that. But when you wrote the post-dated check, if it bounced, they had the right to file. They had to write, they, not that. If it bounced, they could go to the prosecutor and have you charged with passing a bad check, because passing a bad check had legal consequence in the state of Ohio, at least. And I know that it did other places too. Now, I do believe that payday loan lenders, at least in Ohio, there came a point where they were not allowed to take those checks anymore. But we would rush to file for bankruptcy so that my client wouldn't end up being charged with a criminal crime. Because if I
Wow.
filed bankruptcy before the payday lender ran to the police, then their going to the police was a retaliatory action for filing bankruptcy. So
Wow.
if I could get them into bankruptcy before the payday lender tried to do that, because my clients were facing jail, they had to hire a criminal attorney, right? So
Jesus.
thankfully, the check issues, if you're still in a state that allows post-dated checks, you're always running the risk of being under criminal activity. It's not the same. If you use your credit card and don't pay it, they can't charge you with anything, right? But if you use a check and don't pay it, they can. So
See, when we did it, I didn't know about that part because that was never like a threat to us or anything. They never threatened that. But it was, if you don't pay this back, if it whatever, you get hit with all the interest. And we're talking that 391%.
yeah,
But for like whatever the term was, because they set the terms
right,
in the fine print. So it could
right,
be a year.
yeah.
And you would be paying 390% on $500 for the entire year. So I don't even know what the number is on that, but it's ridiculous,
It's the kind of number that brings somebody to a bankruptcy lawyer.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the
Exactly.
kind
But
of number that we can only get rid of in a bankruptcy.
absolutely.
No.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, listen, there aren't magical alternatives, but I think if you are imagining stepping into a payday lender, or you're right, a lot of these payday lenders have expanded. They've become a title loan companies. They really jam people up. The problem is that they're not loaning you money based on the value of your car. They're taking the title of your car so that you feel like there's more need to pay them. They will repo those cars for sure, but only if they're
Absolutely.
valued at a certain amount, right? I see a lot of people who get title loans for car. They got a $2,500 car and they'll get a $10,000 loan, right? And so they'll, that title to their car is so valuable that they're just stuck in this never ending, and then their car falls apart, and then they're now still paying the loan and they have to go get a car now, and it just balloons into so many problems. Bankruptcy is the type of thing that can stop that world from spinning for you. And don't forget, you can always go to highheelsandhaybales.com to find a bankruptcy lawyer near you, who offers free consultations. But that is really why, it's one of the reasons why I have to do what I do.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And on the quick subject of those car things, the people that are valuing your vehicle, they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They take it at face value, what you say it's worth. They look at it, take pictures, and then shelve it. We took a $5,000 loan out on my husband's car that the car was only worth like $3,500 or something. But if we had not paid that back, yes, they would have repoed the car, and then we would have still had to pay all of that interest. Like, so many people just don't think about how past it'll be okay, we'll figure it out. And that's where so many people are. We'll just figure it out later. And that's how we get stuck in these traps.
Well, in the 1920s, we called it loan sharking, but in 2025, we call it payday lending. The name has definitely changed, but the damage is all the same.
And if you've ever been caught in this trap, like I said before, the shame does not belong to you at all.
Absolutely. 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 Well, we've got our audience all brought up to speed on payday loans. Love to hear what your experiences are. Our audience, we invite you to reach out to us through our social medias. We are on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. We are High Heels and Hay Bales, but Kristen's confusion might be coming from her home life situation. So we do have to get we're checking in to see how things are going with Kristen. Last week we talked about the fact that Kristen's husband asked for a separation and he moved into the basement. Do we have an update?
I mean, it looks like it's gonna stay at this level, not going legal route just yet. I mean, the job market sucks, and not having a full-time job with benefits or making enough money to support everything myself is kind of a struggle. So
Scary.
it's very
I
scary.
know.
We talked about this the other day. It's like I'm constantly in terrified mode.
Fight or
I don't
flight.
know. Right. Oh, big time, big time. And, some conversations have happened that I've realized that it's not going to ever go back to normal. It's never normal. It's not going to be a marriage again. It's not. And
I'm sorry.
it sucks. It is what it is. And again, with the grief process that we talked about last week, I still have days where I am hysterically sobbing, and then I'm able to just ignore it and do what I need to do. Like my perfect distraction was having 2 litter of pigs in a single week. But
Yeah, that was a lot of activity.
that
Kristen
was a
is
lot.
a homesteader, and she had 2 pregnant pigs and didn't realize it. I
Hmm.
keep
Hmm.
asking her where she learned all of her animal skills because I don't know. I mean, like,
I don't either.
I don't. I'm fascinated. You learned about piglets like real fast. You learned everything there was to learn about them real fast.
Yeah, like when the second one was born, I was like, okay, I know exactly what to do now. It took a week. I know exactly what I need to do. But
Very distracting for you. Kept your mind off of
very
things.
absolutely did. But, I'm still moving forward, and, I sign brand deals, and which is pretty fun. Not enough to take over all the income I need,
Not
but
enough
enough
yet.
to
Not yet.
not enough yet.
We're getting there.
We're getting there, but just trying to keep my kids stable.
How are the kids doing? Give us a kid update, a generalized kid update, no details. We just want to know
Right,
how
right.
your kids are doing.
The big kid seems to be okay ish. She's 11, so it's preteen, all that plus this, but she's coping. And the 4-year-old has become a stage 5 clinger,
Mm.
and that has been a lot, a lot to add on to this. But it's a result of all the big changes in our family. So,
Her.
there's that. But we're just keep on trucking, and I'm not worried about what he's doing because I don't care anymore. It's not my problem.
Well, we're only 3 weeks into it, and I don't
No,
mean to
it's a
torture
bit.
you. I just
It's
know
been
that
over a month.
it's been
It's
over a
been over a
month.
month.
It's been
Yeah,
over a
because this
month.
happened at the end of August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been over a month. Well, I think you're very brave to talk about it on our podcast because I know that you're not I mean, of course, we have so many people listening who are dealing with this exact same type of stuff. And we all, learn from each other. And, you're kind of going up and down the roller coaster, you know.
Today's a
Wow.
good day because I haven't seen him.
Okay. You know what? You know me, honey. I am your pump up girl. I am here to be
You are.
whatever I'm here to be whatever it is you want me to be. And
Yep.
if we're ostracizing Jeremy, I'm up for it. I'm here. I'm your ride or die. You tell me what we're doing. You tell me whether or not he's on a good side or bad side, what I'm allowed to do or say, and I will do or say it
Hmm.
for you.
I appreciate that so much. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, as we're closing this out, Did you know that 93% of people who were asked actually regretted taking out their payday loans?
I'm not shocked.
I'm surprised it's not 100.
Yeah, not shocked at all.
Most of them said that a payday loan left them in a worse situation than before they took out the loan. So just reminding everybody that as we log off today, stay away from the payday lenders. And if you can't stay away from them, look deeper. You've got a bigger, deeper problem, and then we can get it solved. But you got to talk to somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yes, don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
There's no shame in this.
There's no shame. Shame
we need
lives
to make
in
you a jingle.
darkness.
I
do need a jingle. Unfortunately, my jingle is licensed, and you know, the amazing artist who sings it hasn't responded to me letting me know if I can use her song yet. I have to get more famous before I'm gonna have some pull there. All right.
Probably.
All right. Well, I'm going to get going. And you let me know if you need anything. Good luck with all those piglets. And we'll talk again next week. We're going to want another update. Sorry, my friend.
It's okay. You know I'm here. All right.
All right, honey.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with us today on High Heels and Hay Bales. If you laughed, learned something, or just had a good time, hit that follow button wherever you listen.
Want more? Head over to highheelsandhaybales.com to catch past episodes, send us a message, or drop your topic ideas.
And of course, we're on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Come say hi, share your stories, and join the conversation.
Until next time, stay grounded, stay laughing, and stay out of trouble. Well, mostly.
See you next week.